Join me as I face my fears and attempt to survive a chilling encounter with the Shadow Walker. My name is Clara Hearthstone, and I've been a park ranger in the Bitterroot Wilderness of Montana for 16 years. The forest here stretches over 1 million acres, a labyrinth of pine and cedar, jagged peaks, and rivers that cut through the earth like veins. I grew up in a small town nearby, raised on stories of the land's secrets, tales of spirits and ancient deaths that my Salish grandmother swore were true. I dismissed them as folklore, the kind of stories told to keep kids from wandering too far into the woods. I'm a woman of science, trained in ecology, grounded in data and observation. But in the autumn of 2017, I learned that some truths don't fit in a lab report. Some deaths demand payment in ways no one can predict. It began with a missing hiker report on my desk at the ranger station in Derby, a weathered outpost surrounded by aspens that glowed gold under the September sun. The Bitterroot is a place where people come to lose themselves, some on purpose, others by accident. The report was straightforward. Daniel Kessler, 34, an experienced backpacker from Missoula, hadn't returned from a solo trek along the Trapper Creek Trail. His girlfriend had called it in when he missed his check-in by 2 days. The weather was turning cold, with frost dusting the high ridges, and I knew time was against us. I grabbed my gear, radio, GPS, first aid kit, and a worn journal my grandmother had left me, filled with Salish symbols and cryptic notes I'd never bothered to decipher. The Trapper Creek Trail was a 12-mile loop through dense forest, climbing to a series of alpine meadows where the air thins and the world feels impossibly quiet. I'd hiked it dozens of times, knew every switchback and stream crossing. But that morning, as I set out alone, the forest felt different. The wind carried a low hum, not quite animal, not quite human. It was the kind of sound that made your skin prickle, like the land itself was watching. By noon, I'd reached the upper meadows, where Kessler's last known GPS ping had been recorded. His tracks were faint but visible in the damp earth, hiking boots with a distinctive tread. They led off the trail toward a rocky outcrop known as Raven's Perch, a place locals avoided. My grandmother's stories called it a thin place, where the veil between worlds was fragile. I shook off the thought and followed the tracks, my breath clouding in the chilly air. That's when I found the first sign something was wrong. Kessler's backpack lay abandoned at the base of a massive ponderosa pine, its contents spilled across the ground. Granola bars, a water bottle, a torn map. The straps were shredded, not cut, as if something had ripped them apart with raw force. Nearby, the earth was disturbed, with claw marks gouged deep into the soil. They weren't bear or mountain lion tracks. Too large, too deliberate, with an extra digit that looked almost like a thumb. My pulse quickened. I'd seen predator kills before, but this was something else. I radioed the station. "Base, this is Hearthstone. Found Kessler's gear at Raven's Perch. No sign of him yet. Tracks are unusual. Requesting backup." Static crackled back, then silence. The Bitterroot's valleys often played havoc with signals, but this felt like more than a dead zone. I crouched to examine the claw marks, my gloved fingers tracing their edges. They were fresh, maybe a day old, and led deeper into the forest, toward a grove of ancient cedars locals called the Whispering Pines. The name came from the way the wind seemed to carry voices through the trees, voices that never quite formed words. I hesitated, then followed. The cedars loomed like sentinels, their branches heavy with moss, blocking out the sun. The air grew colder. The hum I'd heard earlier now, a steady pulse in my ears. Kessler's tracks stopped abruptly at the edge of the grove, replaced by a single set of prints. Bare human feet, impossibly large, with claw marks at the toes. I froze, my hand on the holster of my service pistol. That's when I saw him. Daniel Kessler was slumped against a cedar, his face pale, eyes wide with terror. He wasn't breathing. His jacket was untouched, but his neck bore 2 deep puncture wounds, each the size of a dime, surrounded by skin so pale it looked drained of life. There was no blood on the ground, no signs of a struggle. Just those wounds and an expression that said he'd seen something impossible before he died. I forced myself to stay calm, snapping photos and marking the scene. My training screamed for a rational explanation: disease, venom, some rare predator. But the claw marks, the drained body, the eerie silence of the grove, it didn't add up. I needed answers. And the only person who might have them was my old friend, Lena Crowfoot, a Salish elder who lived on the Flathead Reservation an hour's drive away. Lena had known my grandmother, had taught me how to track elk when I was a teenager. If anyone understood the Bitterroot secrets, it was her. I drove to Lena's cabin that evening. The image of Kessler's body burned into my mind. Her home was a small log structure, its walls hung with woven baskets and old photographs. She greeted me with a knowing look, as if she'd been expecting me. Over coffee, I described what I'd found: the tracks, the wounds, the unnatural stillness. Lena listened, her dark eyes unreadable. "You've been to the Whispering Pines?" she said finally. "That's where it lives." "It?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "The Sk'elep," she said, using a Salish word I'd heard in my grandmother's stories. "The Shadow Walker. It's older than these mountains, older than our people. It guards the sacred places, the places where the earth remembers its promises." "Lena, I'm not here for stories. I need to know what killed that man." She smiled faintly, her hands tracing the rim of her coffee mug. "You think you don't believe, Clara, but your blood knows better. The Sk'elep isn't an animal. It's a spirit, a protector. It wakes when the land is violated, when people take what doesn't belong to them." I thought of the claw marks, the impossible tracks. "What's it protecting?" "The Whispering Pines is a burial ground, older than the Salish, older than anyone knows. There are things buried there, bones, relics, promises, that must stay untouched. Someone's been disturbing it." I leaned back, my mind racing. There'd been rumors of illegal logging in the Bitterroot, small operations cutting old-growth trees for quick profit. I'd found evidence of it myself: stumps hidden under brush, tire tracks from heavy equipment. But connecting that to a supernatural entity? My scientific training rebelled. "Lena, I need evidence, not legends." She reached into a drawer and pulled out a small leather pouch, its surface etched with Salish symbols. "Take this. It's sage and cedar, blessed for protection. If you go back to the pines, you'll need it. And Clara, look at your grandmother's journal. She left it for you for a reason." I drove home that night, the pouch warm in my pocket, Lena's words echoing in my head. The journal sat on my kitchen table, its pages yellowed but intact. I opened it for the first time in years, flipping to a section marked with a symbol that matched the one I'd seen carved into a cedar near Kessler's body. A spiral with a single line cutting through it. Beside it, my grandmother had written, "The Sk'elep guards the old debts. It wakes every 33 years, when the stars align and the earth grows thin. Only those who carry the old blood can speak to it. The old blood. My grandmother had been full Salish, my mother half. I was a quarter, enough to feel the forest differently, to sense things other rangers missed. But a spirit? A guardian? I wasn't ready to believe that. Not yet. The next morning, another report came in. A logging crew had gone missing near the Whispering Pines. 3 men working an off-the-books operation. I headed out alone, the pouch in my pocket, my grandmother's journal tucked into my pack. The logging site was a mess. Chainsaws shattered, trees half cut and left to rot, a pickup truck with its hood ripped open like tinfoil. In the center of the clearing were the 3 men, arranged in a perfect circle, faces frozen in horror, each with twin puncture wounds on their necks. No blood, no struggle, just death. The claw marks were there again, circling the site, leading back to the pines. I followed them, my heart pounding, the hum in the air growing louder. This time, I saw it. It stood at the edge of the grove, half hidden by mist, at least 8 feet tall. Its form was almost human, but wrong. Too lean, too fluid, with limbs that bent at unnatural angles. Its fur was black, streaked with silver, and its eyes glowed like embers. It didn't move, just watched me, with an intelligence that felt ancient and merciless. I gripped the pouch, my voice shaking as I spoke in Salish. Words I hadn't used since childhood. Sk'elep, I see you. I'm here to understand. The air shimmered, and a voice filled my mind. Not heard, but felt, like a stone dropped into still water. The land is bleeding. The sacred is defiled. Justice must be served. What justice? I whispered. These men are dead. Isn't that enough? They took what was not theirs. More will come. You carry the old blood. You must choose. It vanished into the trees, leaving only the scent of cedar and damp earth. I stood there, trembling, knowing I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. This wasn't a predator I could track or a problem I could report. This was something older, something that demanded more than my badge could offer. Back at the station, I called Lena. I saw it, I said, my voice barely steady. It spoke to me. Then it's chosen you, she said. The Sk'elep doesn't show itself to just anyone. It wants you to act, Clara, to protect the pines. How? I can't just let it kill people. You don't let it do anything. It's not yours to control. But you can stop the violations. Find who's behind the logging. Make them pay the human way, or the Sk'elep will do it its way. I spent the next week digging into the logging operation. It wasn't hard to trace. Permits forged, payments funneled through shell companies, all leading to a local businessman named Victor Grayson. Grayson owned half the timber mills in Derby, a man with a reputation for bending rules and buying silence. His crews had been cutting in the Bitterroot for months, targeting old-growth cedars for high-end furniture markets. The Whispering Pines was just one of their sites. I confronted Grayson at his office, a sleek building that felt out of place in our small town. He leaned back in his chair, all charm and confidence. Ranger Hearthstone, you're barking up the wrong tree. My operations are legal. I've got permits. Forged permits, I said, tossing a file on his desk. Your crew's been cutting in a protected area. People are dead, Grayson. You need to stop. He laughed, a cold sound. Dead? Probably bears. You know how dangerous the Bitterroot can be. I leaned in, my voice low. This isn't a bear, and if you don't shut down your operation, you'll find out exactly what it is. He didn't flinch, but I saw a flicker of unease in his eyes. You're out of your depth, Ranger. Stick to writing tickets. That night, I hiked back to the Whispering Pines, the pouch of sage and cedar in my hand. The air was heavy, the hum now a roar in my ears. I knelt at the edge of the grove, speaking to the darkness. "Sk'elep, I'm trying. Give me time to stop him." The response came as a chill wind, carrying words I felt more than heard. "Time is short. The dead grows. Choose." The next day, another body was found. A logger, one of Grayson's men, arranged in the same eerie circle, puncture wounds on his neck. The town was buzzing now, rumors spreading of a curse, a monster. My supervisor demanded a report, but what could I say? That a spirit was enforcing ancient laws. I wrote it up as a bare attack, but I knew the truth was closing in. I went back to Lana, desperate. "Grayson won't stop. The Sk'elep's killing faster now. What do I do?" She handed me a small stone, carved with the same spiral symbol. "This is a key, Clara. It opens the way to the pine's heart. A burial ground beneath the cedars. You need to go there, face the Sk'elep, and make an offering. Not blood, but truth. Show it you're willing to protect the land." The idea terrified me, but I had no choice. The deaths were escalating, and Grayson's crews were still cutting. That night, under a new moon, I hiked to the pines alone. The grove was darker than before, the cedars seeming to lean closer. I found a hidden entrance beneath a massive root, revealed by the stone's warmth in my hand. It led to a cavern, its walls lined with ancient bones and artifacts, pottery, beads, a spearhead that glowed faintly in the dark. The Sk'elep was waiting. It loomed over me, its ember eyes boring into mine. "You come to the heart. Speak your truth." I held up the stone, my voice trembling but steady. "I'm Clara Hearthstone of Salish blood. I swear to protect this place. I'll stop Grayson, legally or otherwise. I choose the land." The Sk'elep tilted its head, its form shimmering. "The debt is heavy. One must pay." "Not with blood," I said. "With justice. I'll make sure the pines are protected. Forever." For a moment, I thought it would strike. But then, it stepped back, its eyes dimming. "Prove it, or the debt will claim you all." The next week was a blur. I worked every angle, filing reports with the state, leaking evidence to environmental groups, rallying the Salish community. Grayson's operation was shut down when a federal investigation uncovered his forged permits and tax evasion. He was arrested, his company dismantled. The Whispering Pines was designated a protected cultural site, off-limits to logging forever. But the Sk'elep wasn't done. On the night of Grayson's arrest, I found a gift outside my cabin. A cedar branch tied with a leather cord, warm to the touch. I knew it was a sign. The land was watching, and so was its guardian. I'm still a ranger, still patrolling the Bitterroot, but I'm more now. A bridge between worlds, human and spirit, modern and ancient. The Sk'elep is out there, silent but present, ready to act if the land is threatened again. And I'm ready too, carrying my grandmother's journal, Lena's teachings, and a promise to protect what's sacred. The Bitterroot remembers its debts, and so do I.